International football is finally over. Well, it's been over, and the Champions League is officially back. And I know typically on this channel we do analysis content, but I want to start leaning a little bit more into my opinions, my predictions, reacting to the big news in football as well. I don't want this channel to strictly just be for analysis. So we are going to predict and preview the quarterfinal matchups in the Champions League, starting with Arsenal versus Sporting. So I think coming into this tie, Arsenal would be heavy favorites without a shadow of a doubt. Top of the league in the Premier League. However, after two really big losses in a matter of a couple of weeks, after losing to Manchester City in the final of the Carabao Cup and getting knocked out of the FA Cup against Southampton, there are some questions in terms of, are Arsenal going to do it again? And by do it again, I think we all know what that means. And look, I think when you look at Arsenal, the reality is they have an abundance of quality, right? You look at the Declan Rices, you look at the William Salibas, you look at the Gabriels, you look at the Bukayo Saka, who apparently I heard is not going to be available for this game. You can't deny that there is an abundance of quality. But you also can't deny that time and time again, they've had the chances to get over the hurdle and they haven't done it. That has been a major talking point of Mikel Arteta's tenure as Arsenal manager. And although all signs point to an Arsenal win in this Champions League tie against Sporting, it was only a couple of years ago that Sporting knocked Arsenal out of Europe, albeit in the Europa League, not the Champions League. But I don't think that this is as easy as a tie or as a foregone conclusion as a tie as I would have said maybe a month ago. When you look at the Sporting side, for me, this is where it gets interesting because I think when you look at the lineup as a whole, they don't have the depth that Arsenal has, the quality in all 11 areas of the pitch. But what they do have, in my opinion, is they have some game breakers. And number one game breaker for me is none other than Trincão. And for me, I've said it before, Trincão is a player who should be in Portugal's starting lineup come the World Cup. I think this is a phenomenal player, and I think this is a player who can change a game in a moment. He did it I've seen him do it for Portugal before, and also when you look at Pedro Gonçalves, there are players that they have in their side that can make a difference, even if they're not in the game or even if they're not dominating. I think one of the big things is that they have the game breakers in a moment that could make a big difference. Now, another big storyline going into this game is Victor Gyökeres is returning to his previous club, obviously where he had the most success in his career, what got him the big money move to Arsenal, returning to Sporting. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he performs in the quarterfinals against his former team. I think of it like this. When you look at it from an Arsenal point of view, with all due respect, when you look at the possible run that you could have got, you probably couldn't have asked for anything better. Don't get me wrong, Leverkusen and Sporting are top sides, but there is no comparing those teams to Real Madrid, to Barcelona, to PSG, to Bayern Munich. Respectively, no clubs in the world compared to those teams. Those teams are just in a different stratosphere altogether. But on the flip side of that, I think if you're Sporting, you're looking at Arsenal and they're wounded. Reality is they're wounded. I think after losing in the final of the Carabao Cup, after getting knocked out of the FA Cup by a team in the Championship in Southampton, I think there's a real possibility that doubt starts to creep in. Oh boy, is this happening again? Are we about to falter once again at the business end of the season? And I think that this is probably the best time to face Arsenal because of the last two results that they had. And I think that Sporting has a real opportunity for a massive upset. And there typically always is a massive upset. Don't forget, Sporting was down 3-0 after the first leg against Bodo Glimt, and they scored 5 unanswered goals at home to win that tie. And because I think there is going to be an upset in this round, I am actually going to predict Sporting to win this tie against Arsenal. I think it's going to go the distance. I think we may even see penalties, but my guy Trincao is going to show up and show out, and hopefully Roberto Martinez is watching the Champions League. Hopefully he's watching the Champions League, because if he is, maybe he'll finally get the realization that Trincao has to start for Portugal at the World Cup, but we will make content on that later. Now it's time for us to move on to Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. And if you watched my initial predictions when the knockout stages were announced, who was going to play who, what the bracket looked like, I initially picked Bayern Munich to win the Champions League for no other reason than a gut feeling. When you look at the sides, and especially on their side of the bracket, when you look at PSG, you look at Real Madrid, you can argue, Gabe, you're crazy. Bayern top level, but the champions of Europe in PSG, and you could argue the kings of Europe in Real Madrid, surely have to be ahead of Bayern Munich. And you're probably right. For me, it was just a gut feeling, a feeling that the German side were going to get it done this season. And I think this is a very interesting tie for a number of different reasons. Real Madrid have had an up and down season, of course, starting off the season with Xabi Alonso, now Arbeloa as the manager. There's been a ton of questions. Can Mbappe, Vinicius, and Jude all play together? But the thing is, when it comes to the Champions League, Real Madrid, the storyline of whatever's happening in their season, it all goes away. None of it actually matters, because although Manchester City have had a tough time of it this season, a tough go, and they still have won the Carabao Cup, they're still trying to win the FA Cup, and they still have an outside chance of winning the Premier League. Real Madrid completely dismantled them. And in tournament football, we speak about tactics a lot on this channel, and we analyze the different systems and how teams win with different shapes and different build-ups and different pressing traps and all these things. But in these competitions, what you need is magic. You need players who, when things aren't going your way, they are going to take the game by the scruff of the neck and they are going to change it all by themselves. And you can argue that no team in the entire footballing world has those profiles more than Real Madrid. You look at Kylian Mbappe, you look at Vinicius Jr., you look at Jude Bellingham, you look at Valverde, you look even, I think this goes under the radar a little bit, is Thibaut Courtois is the biggest, I think, piece of all of this, because there have been so many games that I've watched Thibaut Courtois play for Real Madrid, and the amount of times he has made a massive difference with a timely save at a big moment. I just think that they have something special about them in the Champions League. I mean, it's impossible to deny that, but I really like this Bayern Munich side. I predicted Harry Kane to be the top scorer in these knockout rounds, and then obviously he goes and gets hurt. I have heard that he is returning in this tie, which should be a massive boost, because we all know the quality that Kane has, the way he drops deep to like play, his goal scoring abilities, his ball striking abilities. They have Lucho Diaz, they have Michael Olise, they have Jamal Musiala. I think this is really a team that is built to go the distance. And with how well they have done under Vincent Company, I think this is going to be a fascinating two legs. Again, as I mentioned in the Sporting Arsenal tie, I think this one can also go the distance. But I think the overall structure of the way Bayern play, I think they're going to be a little bit more resolute in the way that they defend. I think there are going to be moments when they control the game. I think the game plan for Real Madrid will probably be to sit into a deeper block. And then you have the quality and the pace and the power of players like Vinicius and Mbappe to hit them on the counterattack. I think that'll be the game plan. But I think overall quality, and again, probably just because I have a hunch, I am going to go with Bayern Munich just in this tie. So far we have Sporting and Bayern Munich, and now we move on to the next tie, which is Barcelona Atletico. And I mean, wow, we are really lucky with these Champions League draws. Two of the three top dogs in Spain, and we have seen this matchup time and time again. in La Liga, and I'm really excited for this one. Again, a ton of storylines. You have Hansi Flick versus Diego Simeone. You have Lamine Yamal against Julian Alvarez. You have what happened in the Copa del Rey just a month ago, where Atletico won the first leg 4-0, and Barcelona almost with the remontada, coming just one goal short of it. There's a lot of history in this fixture, and there is a lot of quality in this fixture. But I have to be honest, I think looking at the overall quality of both teams, I think Barcelona edges it. They do worry me, Barca, in terms of the way that they defend. Obviously, if you follow football in any way, shape, or form, you know that there has been a ton of discussion about Hansi Flick's high line. But as I mentioned before, I think in these tournaments, you need game breakers. And of course, you can't deny that Atletico having Julian Alvarez, having Antoine Griezmann, they are very much so game breakers. But with Lamine Yamal, with Lewandowski, with Pedri in midfield, you have Rashford coming off the bench. I think this is going to be arguably the most fascinating tie of the lot in the quarterfinals, just because of the contrast in styles. But I have Barcelona going to the Champions League final this year, so I have to pick Barcelona in this tie. And now we move on to the final tie of the quarterfinals. Paris Saint-Germain and Liverpool. And I am very excited for this one for a few reasons, but reason number one being I simply love watching Vitinha, João Neves, and Nunes play football. The champions of Europe against a Liverpool side who, for their standards, after winning the Premier League last season, have had an abysmal time with it, just getting absolutely thumped by Manchester City in the FA Cup. Again, a lot of really interesting matchups in this tie. I'm interested to see how Mo Salah does against Nunes. I'm interested to see how Liverpool's midfield copes with the fluidity and the transitions of PSG's midfield three. And I'm also really interested to see who Luis Enrique opts for as his front three against Liverpool. And also, this is a rematch from last year, PSG knocking Liverpool out on penalties. There's a lot of really good storylines in all of the quarterfinal matchups this year in the Champions League. But for me, a front three of Doué, of Dembele, of Kvaratskhelia, midfield that they have behind them, with the two fullbacks in Nunes and Hakimi getting up and down the pitch as they do, I think Liverpool have shown that they can be quite vulnerable when defending this season. And I do think that there is a real opportunity that, just like PSG did against Chelsea, I think PSG can really pick Liverpool apart. I think the tough season continues for Liverpool. And for that reason, give me PSG. And I actually think this one could get away from Liverpool just like it got away from Chelsea. So that is it for this one. Again, just wanted to quickly drop my predictions on the Champions League quarterfinals. I am so excited for these games. Let me know in the comments down below who you think is going to go through. Let me know where you disagree with my predictions. But that is it for this one. As always, I appreciate everybody for watching. Remember to leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you really liked it, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. I'll chat to y'all again very soon. Until next time, peace.